bit moving on. We've got 4 rigs on the ground at present, and we're looking like expanding that up to 8 rigs after the spring melt.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jamie Keach from Resource Insider, and today I'm sitting down with the CEO of Talisker Resources, Terry Harbort, for the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference 2021. And we're going to get to hear all about Talisker today, what they're doing at their Bralorne mine in BC, and we're going to find out why investors should be paying attention and what is coming down the pipeline over the next year. So without further ado, Terry, thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your day and sitting down and chatting with us.
Hi, Jamie. It's a real pleasure to be here and a real pleasure to tell your listeners about Talisker Resources and the exciting things that we're doing in South Central British Columbia.
So I've been following you guys for probably about 6 months now. You haven't been around that long, only about a year and a half. So for people who don't know anything about Talisker, can you give us the 30,000 foot view, who you are, what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. We're a junior exploration company, mainly focused in South Central British Columbia. So everything that we've got is within basically a couple of hours drive out of Vancouver. We like to focus in areas that have a lot of infrastructure, have very good access. We also really like South Central British Columbia because we've got a long extended field season. You know, we're at low latitudes there. In general, where we're operational, particularly in Spences Bridge, it's a dry, semi-arid environment. So we get quite a long field season. So we can achieve a lot in a relatively short space of time compared with other Canadian juniors that work up in the north that might get 3 or 4 months. Our company was initially founded on the Spences Bridge Gold Belt. Some of your listeners might know of West Haven Ventures and their shovel nose discovery. That was a pivotal discovery that took that entire belt from frontier into emerging. So we were able to stake a large proportion of that belt. It was actually the largest land staking in British Columbian history in one event, and we took control of 85% of that Spences Bridge Gold Belt just before West Haven put out their discovery samples. So we've been really focused on that, like you said, only a year and a half, so just 2 field seasons that we've been operational. We have pretty large crews in the field, up to and over 20 geologists each year, doing sort of like a large scale or major company style regional exploration program. So we've been able to generate a whole series of anomalies in those areas, and they're some of our major Greenfields targets. But our main focus is on our Bralorne asset. Some of your listeners might know it's one of the largest or highest grade and longest producing gold mines in British Columbia, really intertwined with British Columbian history. It was the source of the Fraser River Gold Rush, source of the Thompson River Gold Rush, the gold rushes that really opened up British Columbia as a province. Hard rock mining for 50 years, they produced there at Bralorne, produced a total of 4.2 million ounces at an average recovered grade 17.7 grams. So really high grade deposit there at Bralorne.
So, all right. Thank you very much for that. And there's a lot that we can dig into over the next half hour. But, I think it's worth spending some time on Bralorne. Obviously, that's sort of the crown and the jewel right now. You mentioned historically they were mined 4.2 million ounces at a high grade of over 17 grams per ton. What are you guys doing now? When you hear that, does it sound like it's all been mined out? Are you re-exploring a previously existing mine? Are you expanding beyond that mine? What's the game plan there? And, what does Talisker hope that Bralorne can someday become?
Yeah, look, it's really a fascinating deposit. And we believe that it's got potential to be a world-class deposit. So to move beyond 5 million ounces. There's a few really interesting things that got us involved in the project. The first one was the incredible structural continuity of the veins that we see. It's always an issue with vein deposit. How long do the veins continue for? We're all well aware of Rubicon and projects like that have great difficulty in joining the veins together. What we saw here in the historic mining was that there was more than 2 kilometres down dip and several kilometres along strike of vein continuity. So it's really incredible for a vein deposit of this type. We also saw that there was really incredible grade continuity up to over 1 kilometre down dip and over several kilometres along strike of high grade continuity. So there's some of the things that really got us interested in this deposit. Historically, the vast majority of veins, there was only 30 mines veined there, Jamie, and 29 of them weren't mined beyond 900 metres depth. So our initial thought was, well, let's just go underneath where they'd mined historically, because we know these things are depth continuous.
And was that due to water issues or some sort of technological issue at the time?
No, it just had to do with the gold price. They had the gold standard. When the last mine closed, it was $35 an ounce. That's about 220 in current dollar value. So now we're orders of magnitude, higher than that. We're over, $2,500 an ounce. And at the time it was in parity, Canadian dollar, US dollar. So now we see that we're 10 times or more in that value. So really that's all it closed down for. It was just wasn't economic at $35 gold.
And are you guys able to currently get access to historic mines? Are you able to get into the tunnels and get down there to explore, or are you exploring from surface now primarily?
We have got access to 2 of the portals, the BK portal and the 800 portal. The 800 portal, we've got access to about 4 kilometres of underground workings, and we can get access right into the crown shaft. At the moment, all of our exploration we're conducting is from surface. Initially, when we started our exploration program last year, we didn't know what the conditions of the underground were. So we just planned everything from surface. With our resource drill out that we're going into now, it just worked out that it was cheaper to drill everything from surface because all our targets are within 700 metres. So it just wasn't economically viable to rehabilitate the underground and drill from there.
So can you give us an idea? Can you give me an idea of what's going to be happening over the next year at Bralorne? You mentioned that you're in the sort of the resource drill out stage. What does that look like? How much are you drilling? What is the goal here? How many ounces are you looking to add to the portfolio?
So we're fully funded at present to do a 50,000 metre drill program.
50,000 meters. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a bit moving on. We've got 4 rigs on the ground at present. And we're looking like expanding that up to 8 rigs after the spring melt. The idea by the end of this year is to attempt to drill out 1.5 million ounces into inferred category, and then work towards our first maiden resource statement, sort of Q1, Q2, 2022.
And what are the grades you're finding now? From the drilling you've done, are you sticking around this 17 grams per ton, historic metric or historic level, or are you seeing something different today? So historically, all that grade was produced from very selective mining. So we're doing some initial dilution to the vein. So we're looking at an already diluted grade. What we're seeing on average in the grade is between about 9 to 9.5 grams is the average that we're seeing in the veins. We do notice that grade increases with depth. That's something that you saw historically. As you went deeper in the mine, the grade got higher. So the deeper stuff we see averaging about 11 to 11.5 grams. And, this might be too early to answer this question, and it might be something that obviously comes up in a pre-feasibility study and beyond. But Have you put much thought into how this could be mined today? Presumably, you would approach it differently today than had been mined historically. In this sort of underground mining. Has much thought been put into that? Are you guys confident that this is in fact a mineable deposit once it's been fully established?
Yeah, so we looked at that relatively early because we're actually a very small company. We're a sub $10 million market cap when we transacted this asset. So we wanted to make sure that we were fairly confident that the ounces were going to be there, that it could be an economic deposit. So obviously the mining methods would change. A lot of the historic stuff was shrink stopage, of hand mining, cut and fill. We believe that the majority of this will be long hole stoping, so development along the drives. But it looks like it'll work out pretty well and be held by that grade. We think the average mining width is probably going to be around 1.2 meters, with some of the larger veins at 1.5 meters. We've compared it to some of the analogous deposits around the world that have got similar narrow high-grade veins. The most topical one is the Carrignal deposit with Dalredian Resources in Ireland. Very similar deposit, similar age, similar style of veins. And we believe we're going to have a similar mining method and economics here at Bralorne.
Okay, well, let's for a second talk permitting. Obviously, environmental permitting, First Nations engagement. These are all very important things in British Columbia. Is this, how does this task look in southern BC? You guys are, I think the Bralorne mine is something like 3 hours north of Whistler, a major holiday tourist destination. Do you estimate permitting to be a major challenge for you? What does that look like? What is the
Well, it's a fairly easy question to answer because the mine's already permitted. M207 is the mine's permit that it had. So it required a permit amendment to increase the tonnage in production. It's already got a tailings storage facility that's permitted for both wet and dry stack. So really quite advanced. But most importantly, it's got a water discharge permit. Right. So since Mount Polly, as I'm sure everyone's aware, that's become one of the most difficult permits to attain and justify is that water discharge. So that's already in place, already agreed upon. It's quite a large discharge permit, 35 litres a second. We've got a very sophisticated water treatment facility there, and it's permitted to discharge direct into environment. So the water comes out very clean. So on the permitting front, yeah, things are pretty well wrapped up.
Well, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. I spent 2 years of my life working on a water license on a mine in Nunavut, and so I understand some of the challenges that can occur when going through that process. And you mentioned the permitting in place. Clearly, that must have been grandfathered in from the previous mine. Yes. What sort of infrastructure remains there today? I guess we're not looking at grassroots exploration. Is this a hole in the side of a mountain? Are there buildings? You said there's processing facilities. What still exists?
Well, the reality is we've got some really great advantages there. Access is incredible. Highway 40 goes right to the front gate. We've got electricity. We're connected to the grid. There's 2 hydro generation plants, one 4 kilometres, one 6 kilometres from the site. I think about 45% of BC's power comes out of that district within within 10 kilometres from the mine itself. We've got the mine office and mill building. There's no mill there, but got a mill building there. There's about 80 kilometres of underground workings, including 6 shafts. So lots of underground access. Infrastructure really second to none. Very easy for a potential acquirer, a potential miner to be able to come in and put this project into production very quickly.
You mentioned to me before we started that Bralorne is really only one piece of the puzzle and that you guys are actually doing several different things this coming field season. Can you give us an overview of the exploration potential for Talisker outside of Bralorne?
Yeah, it's mainly focused on two of our exploration areas, the Spences Bridge area, which is the large area that we founded the company on, but also our Golden Hornet project, which is a relatively new project that we've picked up early last year. We're planning on drilling 4 projects outside of Bralorne this year. So in total, we're looking at 6 projects, 2 projects associated with Bralorne, and another 4 grassroots or Greenfields projects. First one of those is Golden Hornet. We hope to get the permit there within a month and be drilling there sometime in February. And then the other projects are within the Spences Bridge Belt. So they're the Dora, Nova and Cyclone projects. And they're more classical low sulfidation epithermal veins, so similar to what Westhaven had.
Now, what is the business model for Talisker going forward? Do you plan to, take Bralorne, from resource through development, or at least through the feasibility stage? Do you plan to bring in other companies or other investors to help finance these other projects if you're able to make a discovery there and take more of a prospect generator approach? Do you have a feel for, the direction of the company over the coming couple of years?
Absolutely. One thing's very clear in my mind as CEO is that we're not miners. We're explorers. That's our forte. That's our expertise, and we'd rather focus on that. We've seen lots of junior companies try to put things into production, and it hasn't come out very successful or very value creative. So we'd rather stick to what we're good at, and that's developing projects up to basically up to feasibility stage or before. We're happy and prefer to sell projects earlier than that, because we've got a very large pipeline. We've got over 100 anomalies that we still haven't followed up. So we've got a very large pipeline that we'll keep bringing in to drill phase. So our business model is basically to discover, rapidly drill out to resource base, so define the footprint, and then look for an acquirer as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay. Do you think this part of the world, sort of southern BC, has a big future in mining? There aren't a lot of operating mines there right now that I can think of. Obviously, historically, that's a different story. Do you think there's a renaissance coming, I guess, for the mining space in this part of the world?
Oh, I certainly think so, and I'm happy to say that I hope we're the company that's going to lead that renaissance in South Central BC. I think the reality is that a lot of these areas have just been forgotten as exploration targets, as companies have drifted north up into the Golden Triangle, other parts of Canada and the Abitibi, more historic camps, whereas the historic camps down here have never had a lot of serious work done. Not a lot of coherent exploration for 50 or 60 years. And perhaps that was the view because most people thought they were already mined out and there was no more potential. And I think that we're slowly proving that that's not true. There's a great deal of potential, and it's very easy to put things into production. Many of these things are already permitted, but it's because the infrastructure is so strong, so good.
So, Terry, there are going to be a lot of investors watching this presentation, but they're also going to be watching a lot of different presentations from various mining companies, junior companies, gold exploration companies. Why should someone consider investing in Talisker versus all your competitors in the junior exploration space? What's happening over the next year that you think investors should be paying attention to and will act as a catalyst to really create value within the company and within the portfolios of potential investors into Talisker?
Well, I think it all really comes down to the speed in which we operate. And some of this is because of where we operate, that we've got a very long field season and we can operate for a long part of the year. Might have to do with our access to capital. We've raised about $55 million in the last 18 months, and the majority of that's gone into the ground. Or it might be to do with the technical team that we have. We're backed by 47 million ounces of discovery as a team, and we believe these assets are really going to add to that. So when we put all that together and we consider the fact that within 18 months of forming our company, we're already at resource drill out phase, and that we intend by the end of this year to have at least 1.5 million ounces on the books, and early 2022, less than 3 years, to have a resource statement out that defines a baseline of the company. I think a lot of the investors will see that where they put their money over time really matters. And we provide results a lot faster than a lot of our competitors out there, a lot of the other companies. And we certainly got the track record to prove that both in Greenfields exploration and in advanced stage exploration, like we're doing at Bralorne, that we can really deliver and deliver at a good cost base in a relatively short period of time.
All right, Terry, thank you very much. Before we say goodbye, is there anything that I forgot to ask that people should be aware of with respect to Talisker or yourself?
I don't think so. I think you've asked all the right questions today.
All right, great. Well, for those of you listening at home, that is Talisker Resources, and that is Talisker resources.com. You can find out more and no doubt get in touch with them there. Again, my name is Jamie Keach from Resource Insider. Terry, thank you very much for taking the time to chat today.
Thanks very much, Jamie.